to the number of cats. And it's asking us to express the ratio in the simplest form, which is what we were doing a lot of last class, right? So we have quite a bit of knowledge in that area. So let's take a look. So we know in order to create our ratio, we write the number of dogs and we add a colon and number of cats. Now this gives us a ratio. Now it's not in the simplest form and you may already be thinking that. So from last week, we know that in order to simplify this ratio, we can find a common factor, right? That is divisible by both numbers, by both 24 and 16. This might be the hard part. You might have to first try it out on your own, right? You might start off by dividing it by 4 and seeing that it's still not the simplest form, and that's okay. It takes a bit of practice. But anyways, we can see here that we can divide both numbers by 8. So 24 divided by 8 gives us 3, and 16 divided by 8 gives us 2. So this is how we were simplifying our ratios last week, okay? So the ratio of the number of dogs to the number of cats is 3 to 2. Okay, that is our simplified ratio. Let's take a look at another question. There are 12 boxes of blue markers. Okay, I'm going to highlight that in blue. 12 boxes of blue markers and 18 boxes of red markers. Okay, so we have a mix of 2 different colored markers. Now, each box contains the same amount of markers, so we don't have to worry about that. We're just focusing on the number of boxes, okay? In A, they're asking us to find the number of blue markers to the number of red markers, the ratio. So what I like to start doing, in order for myself to even remember, I like to first write it out in words. So I'll write maybe even blue red. That way I know what my ratio represents and I don't forget, because sometimes these problems have a couple different steps. So you might see me sometimes in the problems we'll do later on. I will write blue to red, and then underneath that I will write the number. Okay, so in this case, we know that there's 12 boxes of blue markers. So 12, and we know there's 18 boxes of red markers. Okay, so this is our ratio of number of blue markers to the number of red markers. So for every 12 blue markers, we get 18 red markers. Well, boxes of markers. And we can simplify this to get to 2, 2, 3, right? We can simplify this even further. Okay, right? We can divide by 6. Now, B is asking us for the ratio of the number of red markers to the total number of markers. Okay, so give that a try. Go ahead and write that down. So again, you're just taking 2 pieces of information. We already know how many red markers there are, right? But you kind of need to do a little bit of addition to find the total number of markers. Okay, we'll give you a second to do that. Okay, let's see. So we know from the previous question that we had 18 red markers. Okay, so we're going to fill in 18 as our first value, right? Find the ratio of red markers to the ratio of total number of markers. So this would be both the red and the blue. Okay, now all you have to do is add 12 plus 18. We know we have 12 blue markers, 18 red markers. So we add that up, we get 30, which is how we got this value. And again, we can simplify this. We can divide both sides by 6, right? Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So it's both a common factor of 18 and 30. And so we get the ratio of the number of red markers to the total number of markers is 3 to 5, right? That's our simplified ratio. Okay, so still nothing really new yet, still very much similar to what we were doing last week. Now let's take a look at number 3. This one's an interesting question, okay? And I like this diagram that they're using over here, okay? So let's take a look. A number of children are in a school hall, okay? The ratio of the number of boys to the number of girls is 5 to 3. Okay, so what I like to do, as I mentioned earlier, I like to write out my ratios, and in order to remember, because sometimes when you have A, B, C, you have multiple parts to one question, you kind of forget, wait, which one is the boy, which one is the girl? So I like to even write it out for myself to be very explicit. So we know for every 5 boys, we have 3 girls, right? This is what our ratio represents. Okay. Now, we are told that there are 16 more boys than girls. Okay. How many girls are in the school hall? Now, you're going to see we're going to do a lot of questions where we use this form of a diagram. It's going to be very useful because it allows you to visualize, and we're going to practice using virtual manipulatives today. So it's going to be very, very helpful. But essentially, using our ratio, notice how we have 5 units for the boys, right? We have 5 boys, and we have 3 units to represent the girls, right? So this is just us taking the information that we have from our ratio. Okay, now we're told that there's 16 more boys than girls, right? So this information would represent this little gap over here that we have. This gap, right? Because we know there's more boys, and that's, you can visually see that by this diagram, we know that that little missing section represents the difference. So we know that that must mean that these 2 units represent 16 more students, right? Specifically 16 more boys. So what can we do to find out how many girls are in the school hall? Well, before getting to that, notice how it's all conveniently in units. So if you remember last week, if we find the value of 1 unit, we can find out using our ratio, whatever it is that the question is asking us. So if we know that 2 units is equal to 16, right? We can see that over here. And we just saw that over here, 2 units, right? This is 1 unit over here, and this is 2nd unit. This represents the difference, 16 more boys. So 2 units is equal to 16. We can divide 16 by 2 to get 1 unit, right? So 1 unit is equal to 8. Okay, now if we know using our ratio that we have for every 5 boys, we have 3 girls, we can simply do a little bit of multiplication to figure out how many girls and boys there are. Okay, using this diagram over here. So we know that the girls have 1, 2, 3 units. So we can take 1 unit, we know that that's 8. This one's also 8, and this one's 8, and we only have 3 units. So we can technically just add it up to get to the total number of girls. And we can see that that's equivalent to doing 3 times 8, right? We have 3 units, all of them are 8. So we get 24. So there's 24 girls in the school hall. Can anybody tell me how many boys are there in the school hall? Yes, Jolene, go ahead.
40 boys.
Good job. Yes. And I see, Lana, were you going to say the same thing? Awesome. Yes, exactly. And we can do that by following the same set of steps. I'm going to erase it here. We don't really need this anymore. We have 8, 8, 8, right? Each unit is 8, representative of 8 students. So we can do for the boys, we know that there's 5 units, so 5 times 8, we get 40. Okay, let's take a look at this question over here. Very similar, but a little bit different. And we'll take a look at how so. But we're still following the same diagram, and it's the same process. So Sam and Philip, they share $210, okay? In the ratio of 2 to 5, okay? How much money did Sam receive? So for every $2 Sam gets, Philip gets $5. Okay, so Philip gets a bigger portion of that shared amount of money. Okay, so in this diagram, when we're taking a look over here, we can't quite say that the difference is 210 or 2 or 5. That wouldn't make sense. We know that the total amount of shared money between Philip and Sam is $210. So the way that we're going to represent this using this diagram is by this little section over here. Okay, notice how it says that the total, all of the units add up to $210. Okay, so we can follow a similar process that we did in the previous question, where we say, okay, well, I know that I have 7 units in total. We can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no. 4. Let me try that again. 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 units, right? Total up to 210. Right? This was representative of the ratio 2 to 5, right? For every $2 that Sam gets, Philip gets 5. So this is, think of these units as the ratio. So 7 units equals 210. Again, we're going to do the same process as before. We can divide 210 by 7 to get 1 unit. And that's going to make our lives a lot easier because we can find out what this difference is over here. Okay? So 1 unit, 210 divided by 7, we can see is 30, right? So now we know each unit is $30. So $30 here, $30 here. So we can see that Philip has more than Sam. Okay? Now the question is asking us, how much money did Sam receive? Now, if we're taking a look at our diagram, well, Sam has $30 plus $30, or 2 times 30, right? Which is 60. Yes. Awesome. $60. So Sam received $60. Awesome. Let's take a look at number 5. Okay, this one's an interesting one. So Mr. and Mrs. Lee brought their 3 children to a concert. Okay, so imagine you're going with family or friends to some sort of concert. So there's more than one. Notice how it's different than the diagrams we've been looking at before. Here we have just 2. Here we have boys, girls, also just 2. But here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Lee brought their 3 children to a concert. So it's 5 people in total, right? Mom, dad, and then 3 kids, 5. So we have 2 adults, mom, dad, and then their 3 kids. Okay. The ratio of the price of an adult ticket to the price of a child ticket is 5 to 3. Okay, so your ratio looks something like this. This is representative of adult to child. Okay. Now, Mr. Lee paid $76 for the tickets all together. How much did an adult ticket cost? So again, we're going similar process like we did in this question, right? Where we're presenting the total. So here, we can see that the total, this total is $76. Now they're asking us, how much does an adult ticket cost? Now again, we're following a very similar process where we add up all the units, right? So it's very helpful to draw this out or use manipulatives, and I'll show you how to do that. It's very helpful to draw it out because it allows you to visualize. Before you try to do it without the diagrams, I really encourage you to draw it out, okay? So if we add it up, we have a total of 19 units, okay? So we know that 19 units equals $76. That's the total, right? Now again, similar steps, we can do 1 unit is equal to 76 divided by 19. So we know 1 unit is $4. So now if we want to know how much an adult ticket costs, we can just add it up, each unit. We know that 1 unit is $4. and each adult has 5 units. So 5 times 4, we get $20 for an adult ticket. Okay. Can anybody tell me how much does a child ticket cost? If we're using the same process, just one child ticket. Jolene, go ahead.
$12.
Yes, good job. $12, right? Similar set of steps that we're going to follow. Again, you want to find out how much one unit is. Using your ratio, we can multiply, figure out how much a child ticket costs, how much an adult ticket costs, based on whatever the question is asking you. Okay, let's take a look at number 6 before we do some practice questions. This is the last one. Okay, Joan has 4 times as much money as Eunice. Okay, she has $21 more than Eunice. Okay, so we can see this is representative by this diagram again over here. Joan has 4 times as much. So Joan has more than Eunice, and specifically $21 more than Eunice.